Welcome to TraumaCast. It's like a podcast, but about trauma. Listen and learn from our team about current trends, new research, and continuing performance improvement efforts. This education is available for CNEs. Successful completion includes watching or listening to the entire session and completion of the attestation and evaluation. The link for the attestation and evaluation is located at the end of this video. We hope you enjoy, and please let us know what you think. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the first TraumaCast of 2024. And it's my first TraumaCast ever. So for those who don't know me, my name is Joanna Kim. I am now the new Injury Prevention, Education, and Outreach Coordinator for the Trauma Department. I took over for Cindy Colson. And I'm here today with Jen Fritzing and Liz Weibel, those two people in our office that you guys are very familiar with on the TraumaCast. And today we're going to talk about blood products and massive blood transfusion in the code room. Recently, we've had some changes in blood products, and we wanted to make sure we had all the recent information out for you guys. So here we go. So a few years ago, we introduced the blood refrigerator in the code room, which has allowed us to give blood products quickly to our trauma patients, especially those with hemorrhagic injuries, penetrating injuries. And Jen, since going live with the blood fridge, how quickly are we able to transfuse patients since they arrive?
Now that we have that blood refrigerator and we have blood products readily available, we are now able to get blood started usually within 5 minutes of patients arriving to the emergency department when clinical indications give us the need for blood products.
I just want to point out that 4 years ago, our time was about 10 minutes. So
yeah,
that's amazing. Positive changes, lots of improvement.
Yeah. And why is it important to have blood immediately available for these patients?
Okay, my claim for fame statement. You do not bleed normal saline.
It's my favorite statement.
So when a patient is coming in, they've had a traumatic injury, whether it's blunt or penetrating, we can almost always assume they're bleeding from somewhere. So the best thing to treat bleeding, stop the bleeding, and then give blood products, whether it's packed red cells or plasma.
Right. And Liz, what is an important product or a superior treatment in giving these blood products super quickly? What's one of the most important things?
Well, that you're restoring their intravascular volume, and you're essentially preventing shock, and you're actually increasing their odds of living. The bleeding trauma patient, every minute that goes by where they're not receiving the blood that they're losing actually can really contribute to their mortality. So it's incredibly important.
Well,
yeah. And what do we have? Oh,
we can look at it from that trauma triad of death. Where three things are happening when you're bleeding, when you're in hemorrhagic shock. You're cold. We know how to warm you up. You're coagulopathic. Well, that will give you, your plasma will help that. And your acidosis and volume is going to help that. And then to add in a fourth phase is we need to get oxygen going to your tissues, and that's your red blood cells.
Right. And what do we have in our fridge? Is our fridge stocked the same way as, let's say, CICU's blood refrigerator that they have?
No. Right. It's very different, actually. CICU, I believe, just has O negative blood, red cells, where our refrigerator has 2 units of O negative, 2 units of O positive, and 2 units of plasma.
And can you tell us why we have the different O positive and O negative available?
So let me give you a little history to it. A couple of years ago, we had 3 gunshot injuries come in within like a 6-hour period, and they were all male, and the hospital almost ran out of O negative blood.
Oh, wow.
So we really started talking about and looking at the literature about using O positive blood for males. There's, in a boy patient, you don't worry about RH0 conversion. So they can definitely get an RH positive blood. where a female someday may have a baby, and we might have to worry about that Rh seroconversion. And so we have O negative for them.
Okay. And what if we have a male patient that needs transfusion, and we use the 2 units of the positive O positive blood? Can we use the O negative for them?
If you don't have anything else, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And same vice versa. We're going to start with O negative blood on female patients, but if we haven't gotten any more blood from the blood bank yet, and your patient's bleeding out in front of you, and that's all you have is that O positive, the physicians in the room can look at the risk benefit and make the decision to go ahead and give the O positive.
But I think this also points to, a good practice tip where, a bleeding trauma patient's coming in or has just arrived. You know that you have products in that fridge, but they're limited. So best practice would be to activate massive transfusion as quickly as possible to get additional products there.
Well, and Joanna, do you want to talk about grab and go?
Yes, I was just going to ask. It was great that you guys are leading right into it.
Liz segmented nicely. So yes, we have all those products in the refrigerator downstairs. But what people don't realize, and this is for the ER as well as the inpatient units, is that the blood bank has a cooler pretty much always ready to go that has 3 units of O negative blood and 2 units of plasma. That basically all you need is a sticker, and they will give it to you. Now, you'll have paperwork to do on the back end, but you won't have to delay getting that. So we should get grab and go within minutes.
Perfect. And do we have to have a massive blood transfusion order in for the grab and go to be released?
No, you can take a sticker and they'll give it to you. Now, they're going to want you to put up the order, but they won't delay giving you the product.
Okay.
At least That's what they tell us.
Yes. And so I guess segueing into the massive blood transfusion protocol, if we know that a trauma patient is coming in and we know that he or she has a penetrating injury, can we activate that before the patient has arrived?
Absolutely. As long as you have an account number, you can activate.
Perfect.
Would it be reasonable, Jen, to call the blood bank even before? Like, let's say you get the call, you're waiting for that acute, the acute registration that's in progress. It's probably fine to just call the blood bank and give them a heads up, right?
Oh, absolutely. The more heads up we can give the blood bank, the more they can start to prepare. Because we have to remember that the rest of the hospital is needing blood too. And so they're trying to take care of other patients. So if we can give them a heads up, it'll help them out quite a bit.
And then as we are preparing for the penetrating trauma patient, since we have that lovely new poster in the room with all that information, can we go ahead and start setting up the blood from the blood refrigerator and putting that into the Belmont so that it's already like primed and ready to go?
Yeah, I would highly suggest it. People are still getting used to using the Belmont, and that way you can do it in a little bit with less stress and make sure you can get it to work. The Belmont's going to be important because it'll help us deliver warm products. Again, back to that trauma try to death. We want the volume and we want it warm. Don't be afraid to spike that bag if you think you potentially could need it, and that way you're ready to go.
And what about the plasma? Do you, I already know the answer, but do you think we should be giving the patients the PRBCs with the plasma?
It's not a bad idea. I always ask, and they'll say, let's get blood. And I'll ask, do you want plasma to go concurrently? It doesn't have to be linear. The Belmont has 3 spikes, so you can get red and yellow at the same time. And that goes back to my hot dog analogy, which I think a lot of people
my favorite.
Have heard. Okay, if you haven't heard the hot dog analogy, if you like ketchup and mustard on your hot dog, you want to be able to taste the ketchup and the mustard at the same time. Otherwise, forget it. Same thing with blood. If you're bleeding, you want to have red cells and yellow cells going in an equal amount So your blood is oxygenating and clotting in equal amounts, and one's not overpowering the other. So ketchup and mustard.
Ketchup
It's
and
okay
mustard.
to give them at the same time. Don't freak out if a little bit of red cells go into your plasma. They're still going to the patient.
Awesome. Now makes me want some hot dogs for Super Bowl. And whenever we take the blood products out of the refrigerator, what are some of the what's the paperwork that needs to be done?
It's right there on the refrigerator. So there's a paper on the refrigerator that you put a sticker on and just follow directions. I can't remember exactly what they ask. And then you need to make sure that it's ordered in the system. And then each bag of product has a paper order sheet that needs to be signed and returned to the blood bank.
Perfect. Awesome. So we have the blood from the fridge that we removed, and we primed the Belmont with the PRVCs and plasma. We have the grab and glow in the room. When can we start giving platelets and cryo?
Good question. So with your massive blood transfusion, platelets come in pack B and cryo comes in pack C. And it's part of the yellow products. So we have that yellow to equal the red. So plasma would be in pack B when the second cooler comes down. Cryo would be pack C when the third cooler comes down. And I'm counting the first cooler as grab and go, if that makes sense. So right. If it's a young baby, you might not need the grab and go.
Okay.
And remember with platelets and cryo, not through the Belmont.
Mm-hmm.
There's another port closer to the patient on the Belmont tube that you could just push.
Perfect. Yes. And what is the paperwork that because the massive blood transfusion, because we don't use it that much in practice on the floor, in the ER. And I mean, we do initiate a lot in the code room. What did you make so that we can keep track of all the units that we have given them?
So one of the complaints we got from both the OR and the ICU was the ER would bring a patient up with massive blood transfusion, and we just kind of dumped the patient off, and nobody would have a clue where we were at with the 1-to-1 red to yellow combo. So we just put together a paper form, hangs on a clipboard. And if you're delivering products through the Belmont, just circle, give a unit of red, unit yellow, or plasma, use platelets. And that way you can just hand it to the OR or the ICU and everybody's on the same page.
Perfect. And it's just so easy to use without having to shift through all the trauma paperwork and addendums that we have. That it's just an easy, just visually easy.
It is. Once you see it's there, it's hanging on the clipboard, but the problem is remembering to use it. I have been guilty of forgetting to use it. And so I understand when you're not doing it often, you're a little stressed. You're just happy as heck the Belmont's working. And you've been able to set it up. You may forget that, but it's hanging there, and it really will help the patient as we transition their care.
Yes.
The anesthesiologists love it.
Oh, yeah.
I wasn't even thinking about that. Okay, so we have prepared for an 13-year-old patient with a GSW with massive blood transfusion has initiated. He came into the code room. We have everything ready into the Belmont. What are some issues we had with Belmont working properly? Like a lot of user errors that we have noticed that that have kind of delayed the use of actually giving the patient the blood through the Belmont.
Well, I think one of the first things that we encountered was that the Belmont needs to be plugged in. To rapidly transfuse, you have to have it plugged in. It will still work, but at a much lower rate if it is unplugged. So I think that's number one. Make sure it's plugged in. That would be my number one tip.
Yeah. And also remember that if it's not plugged in, like Liz said, it goes slow. It goes at 50 mils per minute. People get very confused and think that's per hour. You can hardly push at 50 mils per minute. So it's still going at a good speed. The blue clave or hooking it up to a T connector will also really slow you down. I want to say the blue clave will give you an error message on the Belmont.
Yeah.
Trying to think what else. Sometimes you just got to slow down and make sure all your tubing has been pushed in the right way. If you try to load any of the tubing after you turn it on, you won't be able to do it. So load it before you turn it on.
Yeah. It's not like we're so used to priming all of our tubing before placing it into a machine, like into our syringe pumps, into our Alaris pumps. It's a little not intuitive that we just put a dry tubing into the machine, but the Belmont is amazing and it will take care of itself, but it just needs to be done in a way that he likes to be done.
The Belmont has its ways of being taken care of, and you got to pay attention to it.
Yes. Okay. So going back to this acute patient who needs blood, what so there has to be there's been a little bit of changes in the lab work, right? With the type and crosses. Is it true that we need 2 type and cross samples for each patient?
If they're an acute patient who's never been here before, which all acute patients have to be looked at as new, you need to get 2 type and cross, and they can be gotten a minute apart. And so part of the orders the NAL put in with complete, or actually it's part of the Massive Blood Transfusion order set, is to get 2 type and cross. That form that we talked about for keeping track of the massive blood transfusion and what you've given also has lines on there that you can put a check mark. I did 1 type and cross, I did 2, and that'll help people remember to do handoff with that if you've only gotten 1.
Okay, so what will happen if we only draw 1 and send that and don't do the second one?
Usually nothing terrible. They'll still give you blood. It's a way for blood bank to, it's a safety measure to make sure that they've been typed and crossed and it's been double checked. And so if we don't get a second one, they'll call the nurse taking care of the patient at the next level of care and ask. We also keep track here in the trauma office. So Liz or I may make a phone call and say, hey, you need a second type and cross still. We've been trying to play nice with the blood bank and not making them do all the work.
Yeah. Yes. Open communication. Great. So this patient is ready to go to the OR. We have his Belmont is running. We have his 2 type and cross ready and sent to the labs. What should we bring with us in regards to the massive blood transfusion protocol that needs to travel with that patient?
I mean, I would imagine just any additional products that are in the cooler, right? I would definitely send, whatever you have blood product wise, so they can go ahead and get that started. Even if he's in the OR, you'll still want to use what's left in the cooler.
And I would make the NAL or somebody should be calling the blood bank to let them know the patient's move location.
Perfect.
Jen's handy sheet.
Yes. Yes. The sheets. Don't forget
the critical
sheets.
to the operating team, including anesthesiology, how much product the patients received and what amounts.
Awesome. And so now that we're wrapping like up the code room with the patient in the OR, and now we've used all the products that was in the fridge. How does the fridge get restocked? How do we get more so that we're ready for the next trauma patient?
Blood bank will restock. And they try to do it as quickly as they can. They obviously know we've used blood from the refrigerator because we've called them. There is no set time frame on when they have to have it restocked. Because remember, again, blood bank is still trying to take care of other patients too. And a refrigerator can't take that place. So they'll do it as quickly as they can. If something else comes in and you need blood, call blood bank because they're also replenishing that grab and go. And we can get it from them really quickly. I'll give you an example. About 6 months ago, we had 2 teenage boys come in within 10 minutes of each other, and we knew they were both going to need a lot of blood. So the one had already started to deplete the refrigerator. So before the second one got here, we just went and got the grab and go. And that way we could get them both started. And there was no delay on either side.
Awesome. Yeah, it's so hard to remember that the rest of the hospital is still in full function and an operation, and they still need everybody's help.
Yeah, those HEMON kids. Yeah, your HEMON kids, your CV surgeon patients, the ICU. Those kids all need blood too.
Yes. So please be patient with them. They are working as hard as they can to restock our fridge. Great. So we're going to just shift a little bit to pre-hospital work that's being done. So Maryland, we know that Maryland State Police is carrying whole blood in their helicopters. And I think there's some talks about DC Fire and EMS also having blood in their ambulances. What is the benefit of whole blood rather than what we have?
The ketchup and mustard is already in equal portions.
Yes.
And you don't have to worry about hanging plasma, hanging blood. It all goes in together.
So why not? Why don't we all have like whole blood? Why? What is a negative? So
there's not a ton of negative. I think one negative is platelets don't last very long in whole blood. So usually like within 3 to 5 days, the platelets function has minimized to almost nothing. But okay, we can still live with that. There's definitely some stocking issues that I don't totally understand, but it's a blood bank problem. But to be honest with you, there's a lot of good studies on whole blood. It's being used in pediatrics pretty safely. And I'm going to jump ahead to your probably next question. We are getting whole blood. We are going to be part of a multi-center trial, probably starting this fall, in which whole blood will be introduced to some of our patients. And I believe it'll be randomized to who gets it versus who gets component therapy. And so we've decided that was the best way to bring it into Children's National versus deciding to just do a protocol on our own.
Yeah,
absolutely. But I think it also speaks to the advances over the last several years. I mean, just 4 years ago, the blood fridge had, just one type of blood, just O negative, and then plasma the next year, and now O positive and O negative. So that's definitely going to be exciting moving forward.
It's funny. People talk about massive blood transfusion as a process improvement. I talk about it as our blood story.
It is. It's been quite the story.
Yeah, for sure.
We just keep writing more chapters.
Yes. I like that. Adding more chapters.
And I feel like I also have to get a shout out to the blood bank. They are probably one of the best departments to partner with in order to make changes, to keep up with the literature, and just really look at how processes work and be successful. So any problems you have with massive blood transfusion, please let us know. Liz, Joanna, myself, Dr. Delaney, and her team in the blood bank, everybody is open.
That's great. And it's such a lovely partnership. We've gotten so many changes in the last couple of years to really benefit the code room and the patients that come through. Just a little additional question with the pre-hospital partners carrying whole blood. If a patient is getting an infusion of the whole blood, what do we do with that?
So
do we let them finish that?
So the instruction from Maryland State Police is go ahead, let them finish the bag, take that bag of blood to the blood bank. And furthermore, there had been advice to also take the type and screen that was drawn en route to the hospital up to the blood bank. So I would probably do that. Whether or not they'll accept it, not sure. But those were the basic steps outlined by Maryland, by MIMS, the governing body of Maryland State Police. Again, finish the transfusion, take that blood bank and any samples that were drawn ahead of time upstairs to the blood bank.
Perfect. Thank you.
And there should be a special wristband on the patient as well with a QR code, and that QR code one can scan and then get further information about whole blood administration in the pre-hospital setting.
Perfect. And that'll be like an ID band that's placed on the patient?
Yeah, correct with a QR code.
Awesome. And to, I guess, for those at the bedside, if they do have any problems with the blood product acquisitions, getting a grab and go cooler or getting the fridge restocked, who can the bedside nurse contact or the NAL?
Don't give them too hard a time about restocking that fridge. They're doing the best they can. They really are. If you do have problems or perception of problems, like I said, let Liz, myself, or Joanna know. You can reach out. Dr. Sharon in the ICU chairs the blood utilization committee, so he'll lend his ear. Dr. Delaney, Dr. Mo, Cyril, and I can't think of his last name, Dr. Shaquat, in the blood bank. All of us are open to any feedback that you have or improvements we can make.
Perfect. Thank you guys so much. And to end the TraumaCast, do you guys have one takeaway pearl that you would like to share with the nurses or those who are listening to the TraumaCast regarding blood products in the code room or massive blood transfusion? Starting with Liz.
Okay. Well, I can't get enough of the hot dog analogy. Yes. So they need the volume of the red cells. A bleeding patient also needs the plasma as well, those clotting factors. So just hang them at the same time, run them at the same time. They definitely work tremendously well simultaneously. So don't forget the ketchup and the mustard.
And warm it all up.
And warm it up. Yep. Yeah. No one wants a cold hot dog.
There you go.
Awesome. Any other pearls or anything else, Jen, that you want to add?
We've tried to make a lot of job aids. We have the 5656 phone number on the penetrating injury poster. If you don't have the trauma app, download CN Trauma. There's a lot of blood references in the blood and lab file. We have the paper that's hanging on the Belmont to communicate. So just trying to make your life as easy as we can when things are really stressful.
Yes. And mine is nobody bleeds saline. So please don't forget that we can start with blood. Yes.
Right. And, and also to that point, I mean, if you have saline going in, you're going to delay the start of your blood products. And so you want to get in, warm blood as quickly as possible.
Yes. Avoid the triad of death, the trauma triad of death. Thank you guys so much. This was very insightful, and thank you for making it as painless as possible for me for my first TraumaCast. And if you guys have any questions, please let us know. We have the evaluation for you guys to finish and to receive your hours. Thank you. And we are going to sign off for now.